Will the House come to order? Mr. Clerk.
Aloha and good afternoon. Today's invocation will be delivered by Representative Troy N. Hashimoto. Will the members who wish to participate please rise?
Please be seated. Good afternoon, members. Some of you know that I recently moved, and during this time, I had an opportunity to do some decluttering. And I came upon a box that my auntie gave me some years ago, and it contained a few old books that actually belonged to my grandfather. And one of those books, interesting, was published about Jack Burns in 1974, our first Democratic governor for the state of Hawaii, and actually brought it today. It's a fascinating book of a bygone era, but one that can still inspire the next generation. I want to read an excerpt from the book about something that is still quite relevant to us today, the state capitol. It was during the Burns era that the Capitol was well underway in construction when the governor actually asked the legislature for an additional expenditure of $300,000 in order to raise the ceiling of the state capitol by a few feet. The argument by the legislature was, of course, that it was such a large amount of money for what, after all, was just a small thing. During the hottest moments of the controversy, one of his closest friends called upon the governor to discuss the issue in a hearing. It was then that the governor explained his new plans for the Capitol, and I quote, "I want every person to point to the state Capitol with great pride. I want this inner sense of greatness to be revealed to him when he looks upon the Capitol. The raising of the ceiling is in keeping with this dignity that is due to the office of the governor, and that dignity is not mine personally, but the dignity of all the people of Hawaii. I want each citizen to have this sense of pride and this feeling of dignity, for only then he can begin to achieve greatness and to start thinking big." It was incredible foresight in constructing this capitol at the time, in which many might have thought was too excessive. However, Governor Burns believed, and the legislature agreed at the time, that if people are ever to know greatness, they must feel that greatness within themselves. If a people are ever to know what it means to be proud of themselves, they must breed that pride first within themselves. The great leader of people must know how to cultivate that feeling of greatness and to stimulate that inner sense of pride. And it is with this spirit of former Governor Burns and legislatures before us that we continue to be inspired by this building as we think big and achieve greatness for the people of Hawaii. I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Hashimoto. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Ayu, Mr. Alcos, Ms. Amato, Ms. Bellotti, Mr. Chun, Ms. Cochran, Mr. Ganadin, Mr. Garcia, Mr. Garrett, Mr. Gates, Mr. Hashem, Mr. Hashimoto, Mr. Holt, Ms. Hussey Burdick, Ms. Ichiyama, Mr. Ilagan, Ms. Kahaloa, Ms. Capella, Mr. Kila, Ms. Kitagawa, Mr. Kobayashi, Mr. Kong, Ms. Lamosau, Ms. Lowen, Ms. Martin, Ms. Martinez, Mr. Matayoshi, Ms. Matsumoto, Mr. Mizuno, Ms. Morikawa, Ms. Nakamura, Mr. Nakashima, Mr. Nishimoto, Mr. Onishi, Ms. Peruso, Mr. Pirik, Ms. Poe, Mr. Quinlan, Mr. Sayama, Ms. Souza, Mr. Takayama, Ms. Takenouchi, Mr. Tam, Mr. Tarnas, Mr. Todd, Mr. Ward, Mr. Woodson, Mr. Yamashita, Mr. Speaker.
Present.
Mr. Speaker, 49 members are present, 0 are excused.
Item 2, reading of the journal, Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, may this matter be deferred?
So ordered. Item 3, Mr. Clerk, are there any messages from the governor?
Mr. Speaker, there are none.
Item 4, Mr. Clerk, are there any Senate communications?
Mr. Speaker, there are none.
All right, members, we're on introductions. Are there any introductions? If not, we will take a brief recess. Recess subject to the call of the chair. Will the House come to order? Members are on item 5, Representative Nakamura.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt Standing Committee Reports numbers 86 through 156 as listed on pages 1 through 19, and that the accompanying House bills, as may be amended, pass second reading and be referred to their designated committees.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Right, members, is there any discussion? We'll begin on page 1. Please hurry before Representative Ward returns. We're on SCR number 86. Any discussion? 87. Next page, 88. 89. 90.
Speaker.
Representative Garcia,
On 88,
please proceed.
reservations.
On 88. Any further discussion on 88? If not, 89, 90, 91. Representative Perrick,
For 90, no thank you.
is a no vote? So ordered. Any further discussion on 90? If not, 91. Next page, 92, 93. Representative Perrick,
No, please.
so ordered. 94, 95. Next page, 96, 97, 98, 99. Next page, 100. Representative Perrick,
Okay, there's a few things, no, please.
so ordered. Please proceed.
There's a few things I'd like to cover. So in the Hippocratic Oath, it says, I will do no harm. In the practice of medical aid in dying, or euthanasia, it's basically killing somebody, and that, I believe, is against the Hippocratic Oath. The second point is sociology. As a hospice chaplain, I've been with many families where the patient desires maid service, medical aid in dying, and the family strongly disagrees with it. It causes much social turmoil for that family in the process of that elderly person committing suicide to kill themselves. That's one reason I'm strongly against it. For the third, it's based on theology. It says in Ecclesiastes 3 that there's a time to be born and a time to die. That's in the context of God explaining his sovereignty to the people of Israel. I believe it's God's place to have somebody's life terminate. In the book of Job, Job was saying, God, please kill me. It's too hard here down on earth. And God's reply to him was, it's my job to determine the end of man. These are the 3 reasons I'm against this bill.
Representative Alcos,
No, please.
so ordered. Representative Garcia,
Same request, brief comment.
please proceed.
Our state motto, Mr. Speaker, Uamau ke'eo o kaina I kapono o Hawaii. The life of this land is perpetuated in righteousness, and we continue to move into steps which are unrighteous. And if we're not going to move in righteousness, there will be no more life in this land. This bill takes life away from people, so for those reasons, no vote.
Representative Ward,
Speaker, in opposition, I have a brief comment. I think maybe
Please
it's
proceed.
reason number 5, and it's basically about supply and demand. Do you know why this bill is here? Do you know why it's needed? Yes, ma'am.
Point of order.
Point of order.
please state your point.
Will the gentleman please address the chair?
Where's the chair? Oh, you're the no, sorry, Mr. Speaker. You're the man. You're the man who knows better than this, because reason number 5 is supply and demand. How many doctors have wanted to do the suicide bill? The point is they have vacated that responsibility, and now we got to say, hey, nurses, you come up and fill the gap. That's the basis of this bill, because they don't want anything to do with it. Can you imagine if you were a physician and your hands the day before created somebody's death, and now today you're going to heal somebody? That's the Hippocratic Oath. This is why this is a manpower, a woman power issue, and it's because the doctors don't want to do it. I think it's like 90-some% saying thank you, but no thank you. And that's why these nurses are here. And we may inevitably see the nurses may turn against it. So far, I know they're for it, but I think inevitably they may turn as the doctors. Thank you, Speaker.
Representative Kong,
Thank you, Speaker. No vote.
so ordered. Representative Matsumoto,
No vote,
so ordered.
and permission to insert comments into the journal.
So ordered. Further discussion? Okay, if not, 101. Representative Garcia,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill is relating to marriage.
you're in opposition or support?
Opposition, thank you.
Please proceed.
In regards to marriage, this bill says that when someone transitions their gender and changes their gender, they're allowed to go back if the bill passes, to change their marriage certificate to reflect their preferred gender to match all their other legal documents. Once again, I just don't think that gender is changeable. You're born male, you're born female. There are trans individuals, there are trans men, there are trans women, there are LGBTQI, non-binary, lots of options. But you can't change gender, Mr. Speaker. And so for those reasons, a strong no vote. When you change your gender and you were arrested previously as a male, does that change your criminal record? Can I change my race, my age? The list goes on and on. You're born what you're born in, and that's a legal document. It should remain that way. So for those reasons, no vote.
Representative Perrick.
No, please.
So ordered.
For the following reasons, I'm voting no. The question is asked, how does one change their gender? If they're undergoing a sex change surgery, at their chromosomal level and at their DNA, their gender stays the same. When they die and when they're buried, if their bones are excavated, brought back out of the ground, if they do a DNA test on their bones, they're still the same gender as they were born with. And the second is based on theology, and that is from Genesis 1:27, which reads, "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them." Thus, if God created two genders, who are we to say?
Speaker, point of order.
Representative Nakamura.
Point of order.
Please state your point.
Concerned about the separation of church and state.
Recess.
Recess subject to the call of the chair. With House come to order, members are on 101. Representative Perrick.
Standing on the foundation of the First Amendment, which says that Congress shall enact no law establishing the religion thereof, I now proceed with the following scripture verse. It says again in Genesis 1:27, "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them." I'm going to share another scripture. It says in Matthew chapter 18, verse 6, and this is with the perspective of we as adults creating legislation in Hawaii, it has an impact on youth. "But whoever causes one of these little ones who believes in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a great millstone fastened around his neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea." We are adults here, and the legislation that we enact affects the children of Hawaii. If we are saying that it's okay to change your gender, we are deceiving them, and the judgment can then be incurred upon us. For these reasons, I vote no.
Representative Alcos.
No, please.
So ordered. Is there further discussion? Representative Matsumoto.
With reservations.
So ordered. Representative Ward.
Same request.
So ordered. Further discussion? If not, we're on 102. 103, next page, 104, 105, 106, 107, next page, 108. Representative Perrick.
For 108,
Please
no,
proceed.
please.
Please repeat that.
For 107, no, please.
107 is a no vote. So ordered. Further discussion on 107. Representative Ward.
Speaker, at the appropriate time, may we go back to 104, please?
Okay, let's finish 107. Any discussion on 107? If not, 104. Representative Ward.
Mr. Speaker, I applaud this bill. I'm in reservation mode right now because this says by our Constitution, and anything that is ingrained in the Constitution has a superpower, super veto over other things. And this has to do with the environment and the guarantee for the health of the environment. Everybody knows I live in Hawaii Kai, but if I lived in Waianae, I would sue the state for the landfill that's next door to my house and to the breath that I breathe and the children that I have that are going to be polluted by that. My point is, this is going to open the state to a huge series of lawsuits. And the Waianae landfill is only one example of that, Speaker. So I would say, let us be fiscally responsible when we pass legislation. This is a good intention, but we've been warned even on this floor about guaranteeing the rights of particular individuals. They said, you know, you open a plethora of lawsuits to the state of Hawaii, of which, Mr. Speaker, as you know, we cannot afford to do. For those reasons, I have an abundance of caution, and with that, reservations, because of what it implies legally. Thank you.
All right, is there further discussion on 104? Okay, if not, we're back on page 7, 108. Representative Garcia.
With reservations.
Reservations so ordered. Representative Perrick.
With reservations.
So ordered. Further discussion? If not, 109, 110. Representative Gates.
Mr. Speaker, may I ask for a ruling on a potential conflict?
Please state your potential conflict.
I do marketing and advertising work for clean energy technologies.
Okay, there's no conflict because this legislation applies to a class of individuals and entities. So
Okay.
the ruling is there's no conflict through the sine die
Okay.
unless circumstances change.
Thank you.
Okay. So further discussion on this measure? Okay, if not, next page, 111, 112, 113, 114. Next page, 115, 116, 117, 118. Next page, 119, 120, 121, 122. Next page, 123, 124. Representative Garcia.
No vote.
So ordered. Representative Perrick.
With reservations.
So ordered. Further discussion. Representative Pruso.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to go back to 123, I believe.
Okay, let's finish 124. Representative Capella.
On 123, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, any discussion on 124? If not, 123. Representative Pruso.
With reservations.
So ordered. Representative Capella.
Same request.
So ordered. Further discussion on 123? Okay, if we're not, we're on 125. Representative Ward.
Speaker, strong support.
Please proceed.
A brief comment to make the surfers of Fred Hemmings and Claire Samore and others happy. I would like to insert comments into the journal. This
So
is
ordered.
putting surfing as a scholastic sport. Very, very important. Thank
So
you.
ordered. Further discussion? Okay, if not, 126. Next page, 127, 128, 129. Representative Perrick.
No, please.
So ordered. Representative Garcia.
No vote, brief comment.
Please proceed.
The university currently has mandatory training that addresses these issues noted in the bill. In my opinion, this bill is just a social justice whoopee-doo bill to add the LGBTQ plus stuff in there, so no vote.
Is there further discussion? If not,
Mr.
130.
Speaker,
Representative Capella.
thank you and strong support.
Please proceed.
This is not a whoopee-doo bill, and I just want to underline for the body that 1 in 6 women experience sexual violence while attending the University of Hawaii. 1 in 3 trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming students experience sexual violence while attending UH. If you are a student with a disability, you are 2 times more likely to experience harassment at the university. And 1 in 5 students don't make reports of because of confidentiality concerns. This bill addresses and makes sure that our campuses are safe for young individuals who one day may end up in this room with us. Thank you.
Representative Tam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In support,
Please proceed.
I would like to have the words of the representative from Ka'u inserted into the journal as if they're my own.
So
And
ordered.
Another brief comment is that I just want to let everyone know that LGBT people are human and they are, victims of sexual assault. So this bill is necessary. Thank you.
Representative Pruso.
In support.
Please proceed.
So I will note that both in written testimony and in oral testimony, the University of Hawaii testified that their training is currently inadequate, and they themselves would like to further buttress that work because they recognize the deficiencies and the impact that it has on students. So for those reasons, I think that it's important that this body support this legislation.
Okay, Representative Souza.
Mr. Speaker, in support, please enter the words of the representative from Ka'u into the journal as my own. Thank you.
So ordered. Is there further discussion? Representative Hussey Burdick.
Mr. Speaker, in support and same request.
So ordered. Further discussion? Okay, if not, 130. Next page, 131, 132, 133, 134. Representative Garcia.
Mr. Speaker, at the appropriate time, stand calm 131.
Okay, let's go to 131, Rep. Garcia.
No vote.
So ordered. Further discussion on 131. If not, 134. Representative 134. Representative Souza.
Going back to 131, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, 131, Rep. Souza.
Mr. Speaker, I stand in support. A criminal legal system institute for restoration and healing housed within the William S. Richardson School of Law will continue to perpetuate the mission and unique characteristics of Hawaii's only law school and the values of the late Chief Justice William S. Richardson. As a result, it is imperative that we continue to support the evolution and growth of the law school, and this measure will aid in achieving this objective. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, is there further discussion on 131? Representative Ganadin.
Please enter the words of the last speaker into the journal as if they were my own.
So ordered. Further discussion? Okay, if not, we're on the next page, 135, 136, 137, 138. Next page, 139, 140. Representative
Speaker.
Capella,
Thank you. On 139,
please proceed.
no vote, please.
So ordered. Further discussion on 139? Okay, if not, 140, 141, 142. Next page, 143. Representative Perrick.
No, please.
So ordered. 144. Representative Perrick.
No, please.
So ordered. 145. Next page, 146. 147. Representative Garcia.
With reservations.
So ordered. Representative Perrick.
No, please.
So ordered. Representative Ward.
With reservations, brief comment, Speaker.
Please proceed.
Speaker, I have my same reservations as I had earlier with the bill that said that we are going to open ourselves to a flood of costly liabilities. This one removes the $2,000 asset limit. We already have probably almost 500,000, about a third of our population on this particular Medicaid program. If we lift the cap to where it's anybody, and I don't see anything in the bill that says, you know, you can be driving a Tesla and you can be qualified for health service. The point is, Mr. Speaker, there are things that we have to kind of keep the banks of the river so people don't go astray in this, and I think this is a great cause. If we didn't have this, there would be a lot of sick people in Hawaii. But to have it without limits, I think is going a little bit too generous, a little bit too far afield, and something I don't think the state of Hawaii can afford. For those reasons, Mr. Speaker, with reservations, and I hope future committees will at least put some kind of a cap that's rational. We shouldn't have people on the welfare of the health department as at the same time they're driving Teslas. It just doesn't mesh. Thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion? Representative Ganadin.
In strong support, Mr. Speaker.
Please proceed.
Many of the income limits that we're discussing in this bill were not strictly applied during COVID, and it allowed the Department of Human Services to be more free in preventing poverty throughout our communities, especially child poverty. For that reason, I stand in strong support.
Okay, is there further discussion? If not, 148. Representative Amato.
In support.
Please proceed.
You know, the $2,000 Medicaid asset limit actually costs us more money because of the verification process that is required to go through to verify these limits. By removing it, states that have done so have found that they actually save a lot of money. Removing the asset limitation is actually a cost-saving method. Thank you.
Okay, those are remarks for STR 147. Representative Mizuno, we're still on 147. Representative Mizuno,
Yes, Mr. Speaker, in support.
please proceed.
Could I have the words of the Vice Chair for Human Services Committee placed into the journal as if they were my own?
So ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So further discussion on 147. If not, 148. Representative Garcia,
With reservations.
so ordered. Further discussion? If not, 149. Next page, 150. 151.
Mr. Speaker,
Representative Capella,
on SCR 150,
150. Please proceed.
thank you, no vote. And I would also like to read the testimony from the Hawaii Office of Energy. Hawaii's eligibility for FEMA funds for disaster mitigation, resilience, and recovery is determined in part by scores for hazard-resistant building codes and standards. I don't think that we should be, I can't support something like this if we're gonna possibly lose our disaster funding. Last year in a portion of the district is no longer, it's no longer in my area or in my district, but there was a building that had waves that were crashing over it, and this building is 3 stories high. I think when it comes to something like this, and with the looming climate crisis ahead of us, we have to be making sure that we're protecting constituents. Thank you.
Representative Lowen,
With reservations, please.
so ordered. Further, Representative Peruso,
With reservations.
so ordered. Further discussion on 150. If not, 151. 152, 153, Representative Ward.
Speaker, I rise with reservations for the sake of the kupuna whose retirement income will be lessened by this bill. Thank you.
So further discussion. If not, next page, 154, 155, 156. Is there any discussion on 156 or any other measure? If not, we will be taking a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. We're on item 6. Third reading for the motion to suspend rules. Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules of the House in order to consider certain House bills for third reading by consent calendar.
Representative Garcia.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. For the motion to pass third reading, Representative Nakamura.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House bills listed on page 20 pass third reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
All right, members, we're on page 20, HB number 89. Any discussion? Representative Tarnas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, at the opening day of session, we made a commitment as a House that we would take up measures that would help to address the public concern regarding corruption, and we would take up measures that would improve transparency in an effort to try to improve the public trust in our institution. Today, we are having third reading on 4 measures that will help us achieve these goals. And the first measure, House Bill 89, specifically prohibits elected officials from soliciting or accepting campaign contributions during any session of the legislature. This is an important measure in order to improve public trust, and I would urge all the members to support it. Thank you.
Where is there further discussion? Representative Ward.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support.
Please proceed.
And wish that the comments from the gentleman from the Big Island be entered into the journal as my own.
So ordered.
With the footnote that I hope he says the same thing on the other 27 reform bills that are coming before us. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Okay, if not, HB 90, HB 93, HB 99. Any discussion? Okay, if not, we'll be taking the vote. Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, on the measures before us, all majority members vote aye.
Representative Garcia.
Mr. Speaker, on the measures before us, all minority members vote aye.
All right, members, have all votes been cast? Okay, if so said, House bills passed third reading. We're at item 7. Mr. Clerk, are there any resolutions for action?
Mr. Speaker, there are no resolutions for action. May all others be referred to print.
So ordered. Item 8, members, are there any announcements? Representative Holt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Economic Development requests a waiver of the 48-hour advance notice requirement for the purpose of conducting a public hearing with decision-making to follow on HB 266 relating to the labeling of products and HB 344 relating to sports wagering.
So ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The public hearing will be held tomorrow, Wednesday at 10:15 a.m. in conference room 423.
Representative Quinlan.
Mr. Speaker, may I be permitted a late introduction?
Please proceed.
Thank you. In the gallery today, we have a former colleague, as well as a leader of the Native Hawaiian community and one of my favorite constituents, Auntie Ululani Bernie. Welcome to your House of Representatives.
Representative Kong.
Thank you, Speaker. I'd like to announce our first fellowship luncheon. Sorry about that. It'll be on Thursday, February 9th, following session, and our guest speaker will be Pastor Atama Vakalalabure. And if you could, please RSVP so we know how many lunches to bring. And thank you very much, Speaker.
Okay, members, are there further announcements? If not, for the motion to adjourn, Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand adjourned until 12 o'clock noon tomorrow.
Representative Garcia.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. The House stands adjourned until 12 noon tomorrow.